Okay, so today I'm going to be doing like a introductory, I guess sort of basic tutorial on fragments and like breakable props. So obviously you're going to need an object that has multiple pieces like this. You just have 3 different cubes. And once you have that all set up, make sure the transforms are all applied like this, Control A. Then select all your pieces and then create or convert to a drawable like this. And we're just going to go ahead and remove the dot model suffix. We're also going to, before you start, obviously you're going to need the latest Sollumz and CodeWalker versions, otherwise it most likely will not function. So then what we're going to do is rename the drawable to test_01.mesh. Then we're going to make sure our drawable is selected, and then go to Fragment Tools, Create Fragment Objects, and click Create Fragment. Then just go ahead and rename our fragment to test_01 like this. Then in the fragment box here, select our fragment object, would be test01. Then just select each piece, each mesh, and then click create physic bones at objects. Then what we're going to do, we're going to go into edit mode. I'm going to duplicate this one bone twice like this, but make sure you don't move it. We're going to rename the one to root_test_01. Then the other one that we duplicated to main_test_01. Go back into edit mode on the armature, go to the bone tab, and then under relations, set the main bone parented to the root. Then the other bones that we created originally, set that parented to the main bone. And your hierarchy should end up something like this. Then select our root bone, disable physics by clicking the checkbox, and for the main bone, disable them as well. Then what we're going to do is go to the root bone. We're going to go to drawables, bone tools, go to pose mode, select our root bone, and click rotation translation. Click our main bone, click rotation, click our the ones parented to the main bone, and click rotation and translation for each of these. Now that we have our bone flag set, what we can do now is position the bones so they're in the right place. Go into edit mode. Actually, first what we're going to do, we're going to set the object origin to the geometry of each mesh, like this. Then we're going to snap or put the 3D cursor to the selected object's origin, like this. First we're going to do the middle one. So go into edit mode on our armature, select the middle bone, go to armature, snap, and then to 3D cursor. Our mesh will be moved up like this, so just select it and then move it to the origin. Or you can manually set it to 0, 0 on the right. And then we're just going to repeat the same step for each one. Armature, snap to cursor. Now that our bones are all set up in the right place, we can go ahead and go to the bone properties, and then scroll down and you'll see the physics. Here's where you can change the strength, what affects the fragment and whatnot. So make it so it disappears when it breaks. For now, we're just going to leave all this default. Then what we're going to do is just minimize that. We can select our fragment, go to collisions, create bounds, and create a, where is it? Create a bound composite right here. Click create bound. Then we're just going to rename this to test_01. Like that. We're just going to set the inertia for all to 1 like that. And now what we can do is change the bound composite to bound box in the drop down. And then you can go ahead and just create a bound box. can also do mesh, but since these are just cubes, we're just going to be doing boxes. Doesn't have to be perfect, so something like this can work. Then we're just going to rename this one to test underscore 01 underscore left dot call, like that. And then we're just going to duplicate this and move it over. And then this one will be right. And then move it up. And then what we can do is go to the object constraints for the collision, add a child of constraint, and then set it to the fragment object, and then set the bone to the mesh that it should be gliding for. It'll move it, so you can just move it back to the origin, or to 0, 0. So do the same for the rest. Wait, what? Don't get it. What's happening here? I think I messed that up. Yeah, there we go. Now that we have our collisions aligned and set up with our object constraints, what we can do is go ahead and add a collision material. For this, we're just going to be doing concrete. And I'm just going to link the materials. To do so, what I'm going to do is select the ones that don't have materials, then select the one that we want to copy the material from. Press Control L and link materials. Now they all have the concrete collision material. Then, now what we can do is select all the collision boxes, go to fragments, and then go to set mass. Here is where you can define, like you can set all of the masses for the selected objects. So, I mean, you can use calculate, but personally, I don't find it to be too accurate. You can experiment, but for this, I'm just going to set them each to 100. That, and you see here on the right that it's set to physics to 100. Last, here's where you can change the gravity, like how much gravity is affected, whatever. You don't need to worry about most of this. Down here, what I usually do is something like 0.05, and then set this to 55, I think, wait, something like that, I think. So 0.055 and then 55. The rest you can just ignore. You don't have to do this step, these two, but I usually just do it. Then I'm just going to embed the texture because I can't be bothered setting this up. So then now we're going to create a Y type. We're going to rename this to something like that. Doesn't have to be exactly specific, but for the make sure the asset type is set to fragment. Then under flags, what you're going to want to do is turn on dynamic, unknown 23 and 24. And this is optional, but I usually do it. Disable green vertex channel. Then we can just go ahead and export this. And for the export settings, what you want to need to do is enable auto calculate inertia and volume, which is these two here. You can also, if you want, turn on apply parent transforms. Then just go ahead and export the Y type as well. And I'm just going to real quick convert these to DDS. Then we can just go ahead and import our XMLs. And I'm just going to drag this into our resource. And I'm just going to restart CodeWalker so I can place these correctly in a Y map for testing. And make sure in your Y map or Y type, if you're doing an MLO, make sure the flags isn't set to static. What you can do is turn on 21 and 20 and 21 for the flags. I'm just going to place a couple of these so I can test it. I'm just going to ensure our resource, and then hopefully we've done it.